Japan anime news powered by Newtype. This is surprising. During the first time, I spoke in Japanese as usual. Oh, well, I usually watch 2 or 3 anime episodes after work before going to bed, so I've really watched over 500 episodes. Hello, I am Hisanori Yoshida, an anime-loving announcer from Nippon Broadcasting. In this program, I talk about news that I, as a personal anime fan, find interesting, and I do it in Japanese since I'm Japanese, through a system called Lingueene. Izrenya multilingual voice translation is actually being done. I listened to the English and Chinese versions and I thought, what happened to me? I'm speaking in Chinese, and I'm speaking in English, and it's fluent. Recently, I had some bilingual VTubers listen to it. They said the English was easy to understand. They even said it was perfect, and that it might be good as teaching material. I thought, wow. I was also speaking Chinese quite fluently, and the Chinese listeners said they could almost certainly understand it. It's amazing. I decided to record this program every week, so I mentioned that if you post on X in real time or send an email to the program, I would be able to read it. However, as of this recording, if you search for the hashtag JAnime, only 2 posts related to this program come up. Wait, 3? Yes, 3. 2 of them are from the scriptwriter, Nemoto-kun, and the other is from Yuri-san. I learned about this from my regular program, Miyukomi VR, and I'm listening while relaxing. That's very polite. Also, there's Charlotte-san. I want to follow Yopi-san's antenna. They also mention Chi, and are praising it highly. They said that the English version using the translation tool Lingueene is great for both listening and studying. However, currently, we have received 0 feedback from overseas. We are eagerly awaiting contact from anime fans around the world. But since we did receive 1 email, shall I read it? It's the one sent to Janime at 1242.com. This one is from the listener named Yuri-san. Thank you. I have received impressions about the works of director Naoko Yamada. It is very clear that she creates stories that are everyday or very close to us. They are stories that feel like they are just a little stretch away. This is the kind of feedback I have received, and this is exactly what I want. Currently, in Japan, her work Kimi no Iro is being released. I watched Kimi no Iro, and while it can be categorized as a band story, we are currently in the era of girl bands. There's Bocchi the Rock, Girls Band Cry, and now there's also the English version of My Go from Banji Dream. It truly is the era of girl bands, but surprisingly, director Naoko Yamada, who created K-On!, has another band-related work. Although it's not a girl band, the instrumentation is incredibly niche, featuring things like a theremin and keyboard. There are hardly any bands like that. The story is beautifully crafted, especially with the main female character. Usually, anime characters tend to have similar forms, often being either on the thicker or thinner side, but in Kimi no Iro, I must say, the protagonist is a character who is on the thicker side, making it work with a completely different texture from others. Buddy, what I find amazing here is Kensuke Ushio. I mentioned this the other day, but he is the one creating the soundtrack. This season, he has worked on Chi and Dandadan. It's him. The highlight of the work Kimi no Iro is that it is set around high school students forming a band for the first time, so their performance isn't very good. In fact, in the anime, the final performance scene is where it ends. I'll say it ends with a performance scene since that's the setting. That level of spoiler is fine, even if there are people who haven't seen it yet. The very beginning starts with a sound that is typical of high school students, something that isn't quite at the level to be heard by others. However, since this story is a fantasy, it leads to a very happy ending where everyone starts dancing. Interestingly, all the performance scenes are connected. The performance scenes are linked, and the song doesn't switch midway. It starts with a chaotic performance, but ends with an incredibly good performance. This is mixed together. Of course, there is a directorial intention behind it, but I've never heard a music mix like that. Do you understand? When you listen to music, it usually maintains the same quality from start to finish, right? Especially with tracks made by amateurs, they often have a jumbled feel throughout. On the other hand, professional productions start with good sound and end with good sound as well. What I find truly genius about Kensuke Ushio is that it begins with a chaotic, high school-like vibe, but ends with an incredibly good sound that feels fantastical. I really want people to experience this scene in a theater. It's truly amazing. As for the director of that work, Naoko Yamada, I heard she was involved with a show called Junetsu Tairiku. I haven't seen it, but it's the most watched documentary program in Japan, and that's what she was doing. Now, This program is a podcast that delivers anime information to the world through a multilingual translation tool and voice translation tool called Lingueene. Based on the latest anime information gathered by the editorial team of KADOKAWA's anime magazine, Newtype, I, Hisanori Yoshida, will share insights about Japanese anime and anime culture with the world. This episode was recorded on October 7th, 2024. Additionally, since we are using the multilingual voice translation tool Lingueene for translations, please be aware that non-Japanese languages may contain inaccuracies due to AI translation. All right, let's move on to this week's news. First of all, the new October season has started. As for what shows have begun, I've watched Chi. This is being aired on NHK, Japan's public broadcaster, and wow, it doesn't hold back. I was surprised. The original work is quite provocative, with some brutal depictions and thought-provoking elements, but they are handling everything properly, just as in the original. So, it's painful. To put it bluntly, there are torture scenes. They really go for it. On a completely different note, there's Ranma half. It's cute, and what's really important about this romantic comedy is that it starts off firmly rooted in the 1980s. While it doesn't align with today's gender perspectives, it clearly declares that it's fun, and then it begins. Also, Murai no Koi is interesting. I might have mentioned this before, but Yoko Hikasa is really sharp and funny in it. And speaking of what I've watched, I saw Kinokoinu. It's adorable, isn't it? What I really thought was amazing after watching the first episode is Dandadan. It's incredible. The director, who refers to himself as a directing enthusiast, is probably making his first television series, right? When a director adapts something that has an original work, it can't just be a straightforward translation to visuals. I truly think that's impressive. Every cut is thoughtfully crafted, and I can imagine how challenging it must be to put so much thought into creating impactful scenes. Additionally, there's no doubt that Creepy Nuts will become popular again this time. It will definitely trend. By the way, it's really being produced by a studio called Science Saru. There's a globally recognized director named Masaaki Yuasa. Did I mention him the other day? Maybe I didn't. Masaaki Yuasa is a world-renowned director. He has worked on titles like Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken and Lu Over the Wall. Once I start listing them, I could go on forever. He has even worked on Crayon Shin-chan. Science Saru is a studio that creates works that embody the joy of watching animation. Well, that studio called Science Saru, Yamashiro-san from Dandadan was the assistant director of the Aizuken. Oh, really? And the good thing about Science Saru is that they have a slightly vulgar expression in a good way. In anime, vulgar expressions can also be a proof of strength. For example, Kill la Kill has some vulgar elements, right? There was a work from the past, and I think that aspect was one of its strengths that was made by Trigger. The director Masaaki Yuasa is also good at expressing that kind of strength, and that's what Science Saru is known for. The original Dandadan also had quite a bit of crude humor and straightforwardness, but it really matches well with Science Saru and director Yamashiro. I'm really looking forward to the next episode. That's the topic of my current transition period. Speaking of the transition period, there are works that have gained popularity this season, such as Oshi no Ko. The third season of Oshi no Ko has been confirmed. Well, they wouldn't stop there, right? And then characters like Miyano Mamoru-kun are appearing. And it seems like the next characters will be like this. Also, Nigejuzu no Wakagimi. The second season of this has also been confirmed. For Nigejuzu no Wakagimi, it feels like it would be a waste if they don't write as much as they can. Speaking of the assistant director, it seems that the assistant director for Nigejuzu no Wakagimi was the one from Wonder Egg Priority. The direction in Nigeju no Wakakumi is beautiful. The way this scene connects to that scene is really enjoyable, so I definitely recommend watching it. I think that's about it. And then, regarding new works, there's Ninja Batman vs. Yakuza League. I wonder if this is popular overseas. I'm just saying this on my own, but what do you think? Comments from Wataru Takagi for Joker and Rie Kugimiya for Harley Quinn have been released. Speaking of the transition period, there are works that have gained popularity this season, such as Oshi no Ko. The third season of Oshi no Ko has been confirmed. Well, they wouldn't stop there, right? And then characters like Miyano Mamoru-kun are appearing, and it seems like the next characters will be like this. Also, Nigejuzu no Wakagimi. The second season of this has also been confirmed. For Nigejuzu no Wakagimi, it feels like it would be a waste if they don't write as much as they can. Speaking of the assistant director, it seems that the assistant director for Nigejuzu no Wakagimi was the one from Wonder Egg Priority. The direction in Nigejousu no Wakagimi is beautiful. The way this scene connects to that scene is really enjoyable, so I definitely recommend watching it. I think that's about it. And then, regarding new works, there's Ninja Batman vs. Yakuza League. I wonder if this is popular overseas. I'm just saying this on my own, but what do you think? Comments from Wataru Takagi for Joker and Riku Gimiya for Harley Quinn have been released. Well, there's also big news in Japan, director Hideaki Anno. There's no need to mention Neon Genesis Evangelion. Talking about his and her circumstances is more of a personal interest. Then there's Shin Godzilla, and in live action, Shin Ultraman has also been made. They also made Shin Kamen Rider. Finally, it seems they are going to create Shin Space Battleship Yamato as an anime. Originally not just Anno, but people of that generation have all their feelings tied up in Yamato. After all, Seppesu Sudisisa, Space Battleship Yamato is an incredibly important work for Japanese anime fans. I guess director Anno wants to create it with all his heart and soul, and I'm curious about how it will turn out. I'm a bit younger than the Yamato generation, so while I've seen Yamato in its entirety, I'm looking forward to seeing how it will unfold. There is an event called Machi Asobi, which is somewhat different from anime works. I have a story about my own experience visiting the site. When it comes to anime events, there is Anime Japan, held in Tokyo, where many amazing creators, studios, and voice actors gather, creating an incredibly intense atmosphere. In contrast, in the local city of Tokushima, Shikoku, there is actually a studio called U4 Table, which produced works like Demon Slayer and Fate. This major studio was founded by a person named Kondo, who is originally from Tokushima. So, while U4 Table has animators in Tokyo, they also have a presence in Tokushima. They have a desire to promote Tokushima through anime. And for over a decade now, they have been holding the Machi Asobi event twice a year in the center of Tokushima. During this time, you can see cosplayers walking around, while local elderly people wonder what's going on, as everyone dresses up as characters from games like Genshin Impact. However, the caretaker mentioned that in the end, it was only older men who appeared on stage. While the older men might be creators or producers, there weren't any actual creators or voice actors present. I thought there would be about 20 to 30 people, but around 200 showed up as audience members. It really made me understand how much they are loved in the local area. Also, just to share a behind-the-scenes story, that caretaker is a classmate from my high school and middle school, so I was invited and made a day trip to Tokushima and back, which was an interesting experience. Yes, that was this week's anime news. This is Hisanori Yoshida with Japan Anime News powered by Newtype, and that's it for this week. Please feel free to share your thoughts about the show on social media because no one else is posting. Make sure to use the hashtag JAnime. There aren't many places to send your thoughts like Dandadan is really interesting, I'm saying, right? I do know some people involved with Dandadan. I could message Hanai-kun online if I wanted to, but it would be great if you could send your thoughts here so we can share our experiences. I mentioned discussing the final episode of Jujutsu Kaisen, but no one has sent anything in, really. So, for emails, please send them to janime@1242.com. I'm really looking forward to hearing from the first person contacting us from overseas. I'll be waiting eagerly. We'll bring you the latest news again next week. This was Hisanori Yoshida from Nippon Broadcasting.